lost their lives in the tragic shooting that occurred on yesterday. A tragedy like this has an impact on all of us in our school communities. We believe that schools should be safe, fun places for our students to learn, grow, and become productive members of society. In light of the tragedy that occurred on yesterday, we know that many of you have questions about APS's safety and security protocols and procedures, and we wanted to take a few minutes today to share some of those with you. First and foremost, the safety and security of our students and staff is our top priority. And we believe that safety and security is everybody's business. It requires the cooperation of students, staff, and parents. And it is also incumbent on all of us to be vigilant and follow the designated safety and security protocols that are in place. While I won't be able to share all of the district's safety and security protocols with you due to confidentiality nature of some parts of our plan, I can share with you a summary of some key safety protocols and procedures that are in place here at APS. APS adheres to the state law that requires an all-hazards plan for all schools. That law is Georgia Criminal Code 20-2-1185. These plans for schools includes relocation and reunification sites in the event of an emergency. In addition, we require our schools to practice drills across 6 categories, which include lockdown, shelter in place, earthquake, evacuation and reverse evacuation, and medical emergencies. APS's school safety plan includes detailed instructions for those 6 categories in emergency situations. Fire drills are mandated by law and require that schools conduct at least 1 fire drill every month that school is in session. Across the other 5 categories, we require that schools conduct at least 2 drills during the school year. Our staff is trained to report suspicious persons or activities on our campuses to our school resource officers immediately. In addition, staff is trained to maintain control, be responsive, and follow directions of all public safety responders and other coordinating public safety or law enforcement agencies responding to emergencies. The district safety and security plans are site-specific, and it depends upon the design and layout of the building as to what is contained in that plan. 100% of our buildings are controlled access, and we require identification badges for individuals inside of our schools. Our schools are currently outfitted with over 4,500 cameras, as well as closed-circuit television monitoring that occurs in our safety and security department, which is a 24-hour unit. Also, we have a direct live feed into the Atlanta Police Department's Video Integration Center. Our schools are also equipped with metal detectors. Metal detectors are in our middle and high schools. APS has a trained school resource officer assigned to every middle and high school, and we have a cluster of officers who provide services to our elementary schools. Our school resource officers are trained to respond to active shooter scenarios. Through our model of policing, our APS officers build relationships with students, staff, and other outside entities across the Atlanta community. We remind parents and caregivers that in the event of an emergency at your child's school, rushing to the school site in the middle of the emergency can really make it difficult for first responders to gain access to the school as they are trying to respond to that emergency. The best course of action is to wait for detailed instructions from APS on how to reunify with your child. The district will provide that information accurately and quickly. Finally, it is important to stress that each have a role to play in ensuring that our schools continue to be the safe, fun places or spaces for learning and exploration. It truly is incumbent upon all of us to be vigilant and to follow the designated safety and security protocols that are in place to protect us all. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer your questions at this time.
Dr. Hall, you talked about the importance of being vigilant and follow protocols. One of the things that came up on the shooting in Florida was that several of the students had expressed or said, we knew this would be the guy who would come into school with a gun, or his Instagram account was filled with pictures and the like of guns and those types of things. How do you talk to students about the importance of sharing that information with authorities, and how important is that for students to do that?
Yes, we talk to students and we ensure that our students are part of our security-related conversations in schools. How important is it for students? It's very important. Safety is everybody's business, and we need our students and our staff to be aware and to be ready to alert authorities whenever they see something has penetrated that school environment. They are likely the first ones, they're out there. We oftentimes refer to students and staff as first responders. They're out there. They're out there when it happens. And so it's very important that, one, that they have been well trained, everybody has been trained, and know what to do when the it occurs. And then that they follow those protocols and procedures that are in place to protect them. And we can't be too vigilant. We can never say that too much information is enough. If they see something, they should say something so that we are able to respond to it. Yes.
Hi, thanks, Vanessa at the AJC. What happens from a district standpoint when you do get one of those pieces of information from a student or a teacher about another student or person who they fear could be violent? What steps go into place, and is there ever a point where you involve law enforcement beyond the APS police department?
Absolutely, and not only do we involve law enforcement outside of APS, we also coordinate and involve members of our internal teams, our student services teams, our social workers, our counselors, so that we are providing a comprehensive response. We respond to every threat. We take every threat seriously. And when that information is shared, we encourage teachers and staff to share that information with law enforcement. If students share that information with their teachers or with law enforcement, we investigate and then determine how quickly we need to bring in the other pieces of the plan so that we provide a comprehensive, effective response to a threat or a situation that could end up being dangerous for our students.
Do you have a list of students or folks who are not allowed on property and whom you're aware of that have had perhaps made violent threats?
So it is not unusual for us to issue criminal trespass warnings and list people who are not to return to our properties or can only return to the property up under specific guidelines and instructions. And yes, we do have a method and a means of communicating that information across the district so that we can be alerted in the event those persons show up on campus.
For instance, if they were expelled for coming to school with a gun or threatening or something and you expel them, is that something sent out district-wide to not let Dave back on school property?
What happens is that that information is communicated on an need-to-know basis. So the people who need to know that Dave should not return to or be on school property know that, so that in the event he shows up, they can alert authorities and we can remove that person.
I talked to some other districts today. They said they're putting more and more resources into looking for warning signs themselves on social media, searching for buzzwords and continuously monitoring that. Is Atlanta Public Schools doing something similar?
So we are always in a constant state of reassessing and assessing and reassessing so that we can identify loopholes and tweak our plans. Safety plans are living documents. They're not plans that you put on a shelf or you train to them and expect people to be able to regurgitate what is in that plan, with the exception of being able to follow the protocols. So yes, we are always looking at what we can do to improve our comprehensiveness in improving our plans and our processes.
And then a question for one of our other reporters who wanted me to ask. Unfortunately, whenever these school shootings happen, one conversation that tends to come up is arming our teachers as a line of defense. With the right laws in place in Georgia, is that ever a discussion when you are tweaking the safety plans for Atlanta Public Schools?
So I can tell you that we are not having a conversation at my level with arming teachers. We want to arm our teachers with awareness and education and protocols that they can use so that when they show up in the classrooms in the mornings, they can do what they have committed to do, and that is teach and ensure that every day is a great day for the students in which they serve. Safety and security is a law enforcement or a public safety function, and we are armed and we are prepared. We train and we communicate and we educate and we raise awareness and we help others to become ambassadors for us inside of the school environment. And that does not advocate for students or staff carrying weapons.
What kind of conversations should parents be having with their students to help better prepare them for situations like this?
Parents should be having the conversations to encourage their students, if they see something, to say something, to alert adults, to communicate that information as quickly as possible. They should also encourage their students to follow instructions and directions and of authorities, of people who are there to assist in taking care of them. Parents should be talking to their students every day to see what kind of day they've had. And if the parents hear something from their student that alerts them, and perhaps if the child doesn't feel comfortable in sharing it, then the parent should pick up the phone and call us and let us know so that we're able to address whatever those threats are in the school environment. But regular conversations about being cooperative with adults and being able to follow protocols and share information as quickly as possible when they see others who have broken those protocols is very important in securing the school environment.
Just looking at the pictures and images, Dr. Hall, that we all saw from yesterday and continue to kind of see today, when you see those as the head of security for a large school system, what goes through your mind when you see that?
I'm always very saddened that, again, that students are frightened. Students should be able to go to school and feel comfortable, to have fun, and to enjoy their school days without having to worry about someone coming into that environment with a weapon or not being able to go home in the afternoon. It touches me at the core and the heart of the work I immediately began to assess and reassess in my mind and in my heart. What are we doing? How are we doing in doing it? I'm always evaluating what we're doing. I'm always thinking about how can we become better? How can we better serve? How can we create the kind of environment where students feel safe and they feel that it is important for them to team with us in ensuring that the environment is safe, because we need their help. You will never be able to police your way into a state of safetyness, if that's a word. It takes a comprehensive effort of everybody who is sharing that space, to include your community partners, parents. It takes systems, resources, plans, processes, procedures, and communication, and helping people understand how they connect, the interconnectedness of all of that. And so it's always troubling to me when I see something like that happen across the country. It was in Florida, but your heart goes out to the families and to the students and staff that were there who had to experience that. No one should have to experience that kind of day.
I think in Florida we saw a school district that does have plans in place and did have these warning signs, and I think by some accounts did many of the things that you're supposed to do. So I guess the take home, I mean, for parents, what more can APS do to make these, to prevent these situations? What else can be done?
Remain vigilant, continue to review and assess, remain committed to keeping safety at the top of the priority list, continue training, communicating, collaborating, working across the lines of traditional methods, sharing information, working with parents, making students a part of those conversations, because again, they're out there, they see, and oftentimes they can offer valuable information about how we can better serve and protect them.
How often after you hear of a report of a student or a person who maybe has threatened violence, does APS check in with them? And is there anything to monitor students who are no longer in school, like have been expelled, suspended, or moved away? How do you prevent those students from coming back to a school and doing harm?
So you rely on your processes to kick in, and that's why they're there. And so you communicate across that need to know. Again, many of the things that I mentioned, the access control, having identification badges, so you encourage people that when they see doors open, to close them. You encourage people not to prop doors open. Everybody has some sort of badge in our schools. You see someone without a badge, you let someone know, so that at best, if the environment is penetrated, that you can stop the threat as soon as possible and address the issue.
Is there a way that APS has to check in on students who are no longer enrolled here but who have threatened violence? I mean, is that an active part of what you have the capacity to do for the...
So much of the work that our student services team, our social workers and counselors do, and of course even our police officers, is not uncommon for us to be out in the community, in the homes, and again, we're always forming those relationships with our students and staff. So there are ways that we can monitor and check in with students to ensure that they're okay. We don't, our work doesn't start at the schoolhouse door and end in the parking lot when we leave in the day. It follows us home on the weekends. We work, we have, as I mentioned, safety is a top priority. And when it's a top priority, much of what you do extends beyond just the traditional. And so it's not unlikely for us to, if a student is in the hospital, for you to see any member of this team at the hospital, at the home when something happens. It doesn't have to be school related. If there are students, then our hearts are there. And we understand the fine line between what happens in the community and the schools. Schools are seated inside of the community. And so in many ways, we have to be concerned about the things that we see happening in our communities if we truly are serious about school safety.
I'm sorry.
Yes, we do check in and monitor and have processes in place that helps us to ensure that we're, as best as we can, keeping our pulse, our fingers on the pulse of what's happening in our communities.
And that includes students who were expelled or removed from the school for disciplinary reasons. For
Yes,
instance,
if
them back to school.
if there is a need to do so. Yes.
Dr. Can I'm guessing for you and your staff, the ideal scenario is you're gathering tips and intel or warning signs as teachers and students and parents come to school and they don't notice a difference. It's just a normal day at school. But can you help us behind the scenes on your end? How, maybe not grand schemes like what we saw happen in Florida, but how often are violent scenarios being diffused from small up to larger threats?
And so normally what happens is that things start very small and they escalate and they grow. Oftentimes, sometimes people miss warning signs. And you mentioned very important to that process is ensuring that you're investigating every tip and that you're sharing information with the right people. And oftentimes, if all of those processes are in place, then you're able to get ahead or to get in front of some situations. But behind the scenes, it requires constantly thinking and rethinking the work so that you have smart processes in place and mechanisms in place that help you to do your job, that helps collect that intel and that data and that information so that you're able to take those pieces and plug them into the puzzle wherever you need for those pieces to be. But yes, behind the scenes for us is a lot of the important work. But for our public and for our parents and our students, the most important piece, and our staff, of course, the most important piece is for people to remain vigilant consistently. It's not our own today because we're here and everybody's talking about what happened in Florida. We have to remember the lessons of Florida and everywhere else across the United States that this horrendous act has occurred. We have to remember the lessons learned and the importance of us being vigilant, staying on top of our game, revising our plans when we find gaps, and knowing that it's okay to do so. Again, remembering that this is a living document and that it is important for us to work collectively and comprehensively across our internal partners as well as our external stakeholders.
Can you give us a flavor with a little more specifics about who would be involved when you get a report of a student who might be threatening violence? If a student reports that they're concerned about a classmate to a teacher, what is supposed to happen next? Who is involved? From counselors to administrators to police officers, and when do they talk to the student who people are concerned about?
And so it is a fluid process, and it just depends upon how the information flows up. But students are involved, teachers, parents, police, counselors, social workers, sometimes even nurses.
And does that include within your own police department or including other law enforcement, if it warrants home visits to see if there's anything behind these threats that could make the situation more?
Absolutely. Home visits, other law enforcement agencies. And we're not limited here in the city of Atlanta. Sometimes you'll receive a piece of information and find yourself all the way in Tennessee or in Coweta County or DeKalb County. And so we're not restricted with our communications methods. And we don't mind reaching across those, again, traditional lines to ensure that what we're doing is in the best interest of our students.
5 minutes left.
You mentioned you have 5, the emergency drills that you do. The fire drill you do every month.
That is
Concern
correct.
about maybe increasing the number of other times you do the drills other than just twice a year?
It's not out of the plan. We do at least, schools are mandated to do at least 2 of the other drills in the other categories. Some schools do more, but it is important not just to do the drill, but to make sure that we are taking our drills seriously and that we're conducting those drills with fidelity so that everybody understands the importance of what you do during a drill. It's not just going outside or sheltering in place, moving to another space inside of the building. It's important that you are evaluating different methods of getting outside of the building. You know, your traditional means of going out may not be the way that you would need to go in the event something happens. And so we don't just do the drills. Our drills are meant to be an exercise for students and staff, helping them to gain information about how to protect themselves in the event something happens. And it means monitoring, evaluating, so that we are implementing the best processes for those drills.
I saw Dr. Karserfin sent a letter to parents today about just the district safety procedures. Was there any communication that you had in light of Florida's incident yesterday with your own staff, or does this trigger any automatic review, or is that an ongoing process?
Absolutely. We did send information out to our staff on today, and last night, of course, I spent part of the night thinking and rethinking about what we can do to improve. I made a few phone calls with my staff members. Not unusual. Again, I think every day it is important to look back and reflect over your day. I think every day offers for us here at the Atlanta Public Schools an opportunity to look at the processes that we have in place as we are working across our different divisions and our departments. So I reflect every day.
Have you found anything specific? Has anything come to you specific related to this incident in Florida that would alter your plan or how you approach something?
So one of the things that I want to do, we've talked about it a lot in our command staff meetings, and I know now it's very important that we do, is re-implement something that was in place a year back, where a team of us were going out and calling surprise drills in our schools. So the school didn't know when we would walk in as a team and pull a particular drill and then monitor, evaluate it, and sit down with the leadership staff to debrief what happened and how we could get better. That was very effective then, and that was one thought that I had with myself on last night. We're gonna find the time to get back out in schools to ensure that we're doing that, because
This year, ma'am?
Absolutely. I think
And that would include maybe an active shooter drill, or what kind of drills are you
all
doing?
kinds of drills. Yeah, all types of drills. Active shooter drills or acts of violence drills are a part of your lockdown, your shelter in place or lockdown, or evacuation drills. And so schools need to be prepared to do any one of those.
That would be in addition to the ones you already require.
Absolutely.
Real quickly, when did you stop? You said you'd done that before. When did you stop doing it? Was there a reason for stopping?
We did a few of them last year, and as we have, we just haven't been able to do any this year, but the year isn't gone. But the question, I believe, asked what did I think about last night? And that was one. Sooner than later, let's get back out and ensure that we are doing those impromptu drills so that that we know that the schools are ready when the it comes.
When was the last time you had a gun discharged on campus? At an APS school?
I don't recall. I can get that information for you if we need to follow up with that. Then we would be able to do that. It hasn't been since the actual inception of the new APS PD. Yes.
How many officers do you have, ma'am?
We have 70 sworn officers across the district. Okay? So, do apologize, but I have a hard stop. I need to get ready for another meeting. I do thank you this afternoon for your time, and be safe out there.
Thank you, Dr. Hall.
Thank you. When did the APS start? Just August? Or?
July 1 of 2016.
And we can follow up. If anyone has any questions, we're happy to help by email or the other.
So thanks for joining us, leaders. That was Dr. Hall, the safety director of Public Schools, talking about the district's response to safety and violence threats, as well as providing her general thoughts on what happened in Florida. So thank you for joining us. We'll have continuing coverage of this on AJC.com and our subscriber site by AJC for the Atlanta Institution.